Imagine scrolling through a website and watching a perfect cube elegantly rotate and transform, responding to every movement of your mouse. That's the kind of stop and stare interaction we are creating. And the best part? It is way easier to create than it actually looks. Framer is truly magical. We can create all this with zero code, and along the way I'll show you how to create the cube itself in Framer, set up a sticky scroll, and master scroll transforms. Whether you're a design newbie or someone who's always wanted to add that professional touch to your projects, this is your moment. No technical skills required, just creativity and a willingness to play. Let's dive in and start creating magic. So here I have my desktop screen. I'm going to change this into a dark color. Let's just go with black. And let's just turn the layout on for this. To give this a page-like structure, I'm going to insert a nav bar from here, but I'm going to use the one that's available on Framer. So I'm just going to type in nav here in third panel. And let's just go down and select a nav bar from the dark theme. And here we have. This looks nice. Now, let us create another frame inside of this stack, and I'm going to make this width fill and get rid of the fill here. So that's that, and I'm going to also increase the height of this slightly. Let us also turn this into a stack by enabling layout, and I'm going to create another frame inside this stack. Now I want to position this frame on top, so I'm selecting the parent stack here, the first one that we created, and I'm changing the distribution and the direction here, setting that to vertical and start, and again selecting the frame inside and making the width fill. Now if you're wondering what this is, I'm creating a header here. I'm getting rid of the fill. So let's just name this new frame that we just created the header. And before typing in the header, the text for header, I'm going to turn the layout on for this frame to turn it into a stack. Next, let's just type in our text. I'll just copy pasted it, and I'm going to make it white. I'm going to change the font. I'm going with something called Lexint Exa, and let's just make it bold and change the size. It stays 6 words, 1,000 stories. That's the theme for the design I'm making. And once you've adjusted all the sizes and the padding and everything as you like, let's just move on to creating the hero of our design here. That's the 3D cube. For that, I'm going to create another frame inside the main stack. Before proceeding ahead, let's just do the naming of these layers. I want to call this stack the main frame. And the new frame that we just created, let's just call it 3D cube scroll. Now why I'm calling it 3D cube scroll is because this is going to define the entire scroll area for the 3D cube to remain sticky as we scroll. So this width is going to be fill, and I'm getting rid of the fill and turning the layout on. Now once that's done, let's just give it a really big height of say around 3000 pixels. The desktop screen will have to change the height of that to fit content. It still didn't change because the main frame is still set to fixed, so I'll change that to fit content as well. Now once we have done that, basically we have prepared the entire structure for us to put in the sticky frame. This 3D cube scroll area, you can make this as big as you want to, depends on how long you want the entire scroll interaction to be. Now inside this, I'm going to create another frame which has position itself at the center. So I'm going to select the 3D scroll area and set the direction to vertical and start. And let's just take this frame and set the width of this to fill. So I'm just going to width here, fill, and height, let's just set that to viewport height 100%. So here we have 100 VH. Now this frame that we have just created is going to be our sticky frame. I'm just going to get rid of the fill here, and let's just call it sticky. And we'll change the position type from relative to sticky. When you do that, there's a slight change in the viewport height. So it's nothing, we just have to bring it back to 100. And once done, you'd have successfully created the sticky scroll structure. Now inside of the sticky frame, we're going to create our cube. I'm going to lock the aspect ratio, the width and height. I'm going to set it at 350. Now this is our parent frame for the cube. Inside of this frame, we're going to add another frame. So let's just right click, add frame. And now this is going to be our cube, inside of which this first frame that we have created is our front face of the cube. Now we have to create all the different sides, all the different faces, but let's just give it a color here so we can just differentiate better. Now if you look at the design that we are creating here, we have these photos running across each side as we are scrolling. These are all different pictures put together in like a ticker component. So we're not creating this as a simple cube with different sides and different colors. We're actually creating something slightly different. And how we are going to do this is what you're going to see now. We'll have to treat this a little differently. I'm going to create a component for the front face that we just created. We're going to use this as a base to create our other sides. I'm going to call this component as a panel. Now why we are making this into a component is because we want to create variables for different images. So here in the insert panel, first of all, I'm going to search for ticker and I'm placing it inside my component here. Now this sticker, I want it to be 0 from all sides because I want it to occupy the entire space. Next, let's search for the image component from the insert panel. So I'm just going to type in image, drag and drop the image component here, and I'm going to just hit Command D to duplicate it 4 times. You can have as many images that you want in your ticker. I'm just going to add with 4. And in here, add your images. So I'm going to go to Plugins, Unsplash, and let's just search for nature related images. I'm going to go with Misty Mountains and simply select the image that I like. Now we are going to repeat the process for all the 4 image components that we have. Once done, we're going to connect the ticker component to all the 4 images just like that. It's very simple. And now we have our main setup done. We just have to adjust the padding and a few other things here. So first, let's just go to the ticker component and adjust the gap, and I'm going to make it 0. Next, going to clip, I'm going to turn fade off. And here we have all the 4 images connected to the sticker. Now we just have to ensure that these images have the same aspect ratio as the cube. So I'm going to set that to 350 so that it occupies the entire space inside the square panel that we have here. Let us play and have a look at this. So this is what our first side looks like. The images are sort of moving, and yeah, this looks great. Let's go back here. I'm just quickly updating this flower image here because it's just matching with the image right next to it. So yeah, once done, we want these images to be variables because we want to change these images for every side. So let's just select the image, go to fill and create variable for the image, and let's just call it image here. We're going to do with all the 4 images. Just go to fill, create variable and image. This will ensure you can change these images for for all the different sizes that we have. So that's the reason we created this component, because we wanted to make certain things changeable. So now this is done. We have created these into variables. Now if you want, you can create more variables like opacity could be a variable. Wherever you see the plus icon right next to the text is what you can turn into a variable. So yeah, you can turn all of these into different variables depending upon what sort of design you want, and you can change it for every side. Going back, let us just bring up the opacity here for this panel that we have. We had reduced it earlier. We don't want to do that now. So I'm just bringing it back. Now I'm going to the parent cube frame that we have, and we have to start creating our cube. So we'll go to transform, and we're going to select preserve 3D because all the sides that we're going to create inside this parent frame, we want that to be on the same 3D space. Now we're also going to turn on perspective. Let's just set this to maybe 2000. And I'm also going to add rotate. I'm going to turn this into 3D rotate, and let's just add some rotation value here. So on X, I'm going to do -20, and on Y, let's just do -30. So now I have created this, entire parent frame into a 3D transform structure. It's time for us to add different sides to it. So for that, I've duplicated panel 1. I'm going to call it side 2. Now panel is our side 1, so let's just rename that to side 1. And for side 2, we have just duplicated. You see how we have all these images here which we set as variables. So we can update that for side 2. For now, first let's just add 3D transforms. And I'm also going to add origin. So clicking on this plus icon again, let's go to origin and add. Now how to define the origin and why it is important to change. You will learn with this small trick right here. It's very simple, but it makes the entire thing very easy to understand. Imagine this as the same square that we have. as our cube side. Now, let us mark the x and the y axis. Now we want to rotate our side from this particular side. To do that, we want the point somewhere here. So on y it's 50 and on x it's 100 because we're going all the way to the right. So to mark that, let's go to side 2, origin, and we're going to say x is all the way to the 100 because we want it towards the end, and y can be 50. Now again, selecting side 2, we need to change the rotation here. Now you see we are actually, because we set the origin as 150, so it's 100 on x, and now we're going to add the rotation on y axis and make it minus 90. Now if you are still having trouble understanding the concept of origin, you can check out our previous video on 3D card transforms, and I've linked it in the description. Now to create the other side, I'm just going to repeat the process. Duplicate my side 1. Let's just call this side 3. Now we want to rotate it along the other side. This is going to be side, the left side. So what we're going to do is, now y can be anything, but x is 0 here. So let's just again go to transforms, origin, and set x to 0. So now this will move along the other side, and on the y-axis, let's just make it 90. So there we go. So we have created the 3 sides of the cube, and now you can always select the parent frame and change the rotation to change the rotation of the overall cube to see how this looks. Now we have to create the top and the bottom. So I'm going to duplicate side 1 again. Now it's very important you always duplicate side 1 to create your other sides, because we have been using that as a base to create all our other sides. So it will be easier for us to determine the origin. Now we want to move it across the x-axis to create the top and the bottom. I'm changing the origin on y-axis to 100, and let's just change that to 3D transform, and I'm going to add 90 on x-axis. So that's that. And again, we're going to create, for the top, we're going to follow the exact same process. So duplicating my side 1 again, there's some issue in the naming convention here I am noticing. So I just name this as side 5, it's going to be side 4, and the new frame that I just duplicated is going to be side 5. Now, for this one, the side 4, which is our bottom frame, we set the y value to 100. We're going to do it exact opposite for the top side. So let's just add origin and make it 0. And let just y be 50. And I'm going to change the rotation to 3D. And on x-axis, we can have either 270, or we can also have minus 90, the way you want to. You can do it either ways. I'll quickly show you how, and there we go. So now we have our cube ready. So I'm going to go to our parent cube here, and let's just change the rotation here to be able to see the back side. So I'm just rotating it on the x and the y axis, just like that. And now we see that there is this, the side missing. To create the back face here, that is opposite to side 1, we can't really change the origin and rotate it in a certain angle, because this is not sharing any edge with the side 1. This is on the completely opposite side. So we can't really change the x-axis and y-axis and rotate it. To match the edge, what we'll have to do is go to transform and select depth. Now when you do that, you see you can add a depth of minus 350. That's the dimension of the first side that we had, 350. Let's just do it minus 350 here. If we do plus 350, it's going on the opposite side. So I'm just going to do minus 350. And with that, the cube is complete. We have created all the 6 sides of the cube. And now you can just select the parent frame that you have and position it in the center the way you want to. Now let's just get rid of this guide right here. And now the best part, all these sides that you see here, you can just update these images. Just go to cube, any side that you want to, and you can change the images from here. And that's all because we had created variables for these images. That's a pretty simple process, so we can do that. Now there's this rookie mistake I did here. So I added the sticky frame into another stack because I wanted to center align the cube. All I had to do was just turn the sticky frame into a stack by turning layout on. Well, we'll correct that later, but for now inside my 3D cube scroll stack that we have, I'm going to create another frame that will go right under the sticky cube that we have. Let's just make the height viewport 100%, and I'm changing the width to fill. Next, I'm going to get rid of the fill here and mention each topic that I have. So let's just go with the first one here, that's nature. I'm going to edit this further by just changing the size maybe. I'm just going to make it very big. You can edit this the way you like. So I'm just going to speed this process up. Just changing the font color, the positioning by turning layout on, and also giving this like a nice gradient here. So yeah, once done, once you're happy with what you have, I'm going to duplicate this stack, and this 3D cube scroll, I'm going to change the gap here to 0 because I don't want any gaps in between these stacks. And let's just call this first one scroll trigger 1. Now if you're wondering what this is the name of the topic, but this stack is also what will determine which side of the cube will it switch to when we scroll in this particular section. So these sections that we are creating with different topics are basically scroll triggers. And if you're still not understanding what actually is happening here, I'd say just follow the process, because as we proceed, all of this will start making sense. So yeah, I'm just going to duplicate these stacks. Let's just go to 3D cube scroll and ensure that the height is set to fit content now. And we're going to just duplicate these stacks and just keep changing the titles here. Now if you see the theme here, it's 6 words, 1,000 stories. So basically I'm going to have 6 different titles: nature, people, culture, dreams, hope, like that. And for each topic I have different images scrolling across the ticker in that side of the cube, in that particular side of the cube, and the cube is going to rotate accordingly, showing those set of pictures in that particular section. So these right now that I've created are 6 scroll triggers that we have with 6 titles. But if you see, after hope also I have another stack, and that is basically the spacer. So I'm just going to rename all these stacks into scroll trigger 2, scroll trigger 3, just like that. And the last one right here that we have would be the spacer. So after scroll trigger 6 we have the spacer. So once done, I really don't like the title here anymore, like the font of the title. So I'm just going to update it right here very quickly. Now all these scroll triggers that we have made, these are scroll sections. So we need to define these scroll sections in order for us to be able to animate the cube. So just all these scroll triggers that you have, I'm going to select each one of them and go all the way to scroll section and give this a name. Let's just say this one is scroll trigger 1. Now why we are doing this, when we animate it, we have to define the scroll section, and once we we have to mention the scroll section, and unless we have defined this through by actually naming the scroll section, that option doesn't show up. So we have to create scroll sections for each of these scroll triggers that we have created. Now I'm going to get rid of this extra stack that I had created along the sticky frame. Like I said earlier, that was not required. So let's just get rid of that. And now for the 3D cube scroll, let's just change the overflow settings to visible in order for our sticky frame to be sticky. So as you know, the sticky frame only works, the sticky scroll only works when all its parents frame are the overflow settings set to visible. And now when you play it, this is what it looks like. The moving images give a really cool effect to the entire scene, and when we scroll through, we see all these different sections scrolling up. So I have nature, people, everything scrolling up, and all these are not sticky, so they are just scrolling behind the cube. Only our cube is set to sticky, so it will remain in its position. Rest all other items will just scroll behind. Now what we have to do is we'll have to animate this cube. So I'm going to go to sticky cube, which is the parent frame, and then under 3D rotation, I'm going to change the values here till the time I only see the front of the cube and not the sides. Now it's time for us to add the animation. Selecting the cube again, going to effects. In here, we'll select scroll transform. Now the trigger here will be section in view, viewport will be set to bottom, and section will choose scroll trigger 1. Let's adjust the from values. So I'm going to let the opacity be 1 and scale is 0.5. 2, I'm just not going to change anything here. Let's just scale up from 0.5 to 1. However, if you want, you can add a 3D transform here as well. But in this case, I'm going to let it be. Next, I'm going to add the transition here. So we're going to change that by increasing the time here. I'm going to go to time and set that to 1. So that's a very smooth scrolling animation. Next, let's just add another section, and this time it's going to be scroll trigger 2. In scroll trigger 2, we want it to 3D rotate by -90. So this is a size that will be visible here, you can see. And you're going to use offset values on the x-axis to position it in the center, just like that. So once you're happy with that position, you can go back, add another section. Let's say scroll trigger 3. And here the effect will be from -90, we go to -180. So you see how we're rotating the cube, right, with this 3D rotation. And we are also adjusting the offset values each time to make sure it's in the center. It doesn't have to be exact, I'm just eyeballing it. And again, the section will be scroll trigger 4. And now it will be -270 on y-axis. So I'm just adding 90 each time. It was 90, 180 and now 270. Because I'm wanting to rotate it in a particular direction, I'm adding the minus in front of it. And now we have rotated the cube along all the sides. We have to show the top and the bottom. To do that, we're going to add the x-axis here. So it's going to be 90 so that it shows the top side. But you see it's kind of rotated. We're going to fix that later. Let's just that be 90. If you say -90, it will show the bottom. So I'm just going it to be +90 for now. Again, going back, adding our last scroll trigger 6. And the effect here would be, we're going to change the values on the x-axis, but this time we're going to do +80 because you want to move it from top to bottom. So it's going to be 270. Now, let's just view this in action. So here we have the cube scaling up, and then we have these different sides it's changing into as we are scrolling. I'm making it go very slow so you can see what exactly is happening here. Now when the cube rotates to the top side, you see there's a rotation problem. And even for the bottom side, the images are tilted here, they're at a 90 degrees angle. So we'll have to change that. To do that, I'm going to go to the assets panel right here. Go to panel. Now this was our asset, right? What we have to do is we have to create another transform here that is rotate. And this rotate is going to be a variable because we want to be able to change it for every side. So let's just go to rotate, create variable, and that's it. Let's just go back here and going to my layers panel again, let's just expand these layers. Selecting the cube layer, I'll check the, go to scroll transform again. Come to this section where it's scroll trigger 5, and here we see that the rotation is like that. So we have to rotate it by 90 degrees to make it straight. Now these images was from the hope side, so these are the images here. So I'm going to set the rotation here and I'll say 90 degrees. So now rotation is also a variable, you can see. So now when I go back here, cube, and I check scroll trigger 5, and now it's straight. Cool. Now we had another image for the bottom, that is scroll trigger 6. Here it's on the other side, so I'm going to rotate it by 270 degrees. So I'm going to select dreams because that image belongs to the dreams category, and here we have 270 degrees. Let's just check this again. Go to cube and scroll trigger 6. Let's just check the effect. Yeah, now the images are straight. Now next what I want to do is I want to increase the scroll area by creating more spacers. So I'm just duplicated this stack here, scroll trigger 1, and I'm going to call the spacer. We don't need to have this to be a scroll section, so I'm going to remove that. And now I'm going to duplicate the spacer and place it under every scroll trigger that we have. Just duplicate the spacer and just place it correctly. So there we go, just like that. And we already have a spacer under scroll trigger 6, but I ended up duplicating anyway. So yeah, now let's just have a look at this. So there we go, it scales up, and then we have the titles scrolling behind. And because we added the spacer, now you see after the title scrolls up, we are still getting some time to enjoy the images that are running across the ticker. So it's not very quick. I'm anyway scrolling slightly slow, but you understand how this effect is now. And now when we see the bottom, just like that, the images are pretty straight. So this is really cool. And even when we move to the top, so when we go like that, we rotate the cube twice, the images here are straight as well. Now you can always update these titles as per the side of the cube that is showing. So for me, I had to make a few little changes here. And once done, this is what the final animation looks like. We have nature and that scrolls up, and then we have moments, and we can always publish this. You can update the link and publish it to check this out on an actual browser. And there we go, we have our beautiful scroll animation as smooth as ever, and as we are scrolling, the sides are switching, it's rotating in a 3D manner, and with everything here at the title, the culture, we see the culture pictures, and then we go up, we see people pictures. So you can have like different topics, and you can represent them in this manner. It could also be steps for a certain process if you're talking about, just to make it a little more interactive. You can have different other ideas around this. As you scroll back up, it sort of rotates in the opposite direction. And that's all. That's it for this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to do more of 3D scroll animations, we have a bunch of other tutorials as well. Do check out the description box. Also, if you like our content, do hit that subscribe button and the like button. It really helps our small channel to grow. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.